Silence. After the storm, November 11, 1918. The Great War, the war to end all wars, has ended. Across Europe, the guns fall silent. Soldiers embrace, nations rejoice, and the world exhales for the first time in years. But beneath the cheers and the flags lies something darker, a silence too deep, too uneasy. 4 great empires have fallen. 20 million lives have been lost. And as the victors celebrate, a new conflict, invisible, emotional, inevitable, begins to take root. This is not peace. It's the calm before another storm. Welcome to History War Chronicles, where the past speaks and history lives again. If you love powerful stories from the wars that shaped humanity, hit like, subscribe, and turn on the bell. Your journey through history starts now. The Broken Peace. How the world changed after WWI. To Part 1. The day the guns fell silent. When the armistice was signed, the world breathed again. But it wasn't relief. It was exhaustion. The fields of France lay scarred, soaked in blood and memory. London, Berlin, and Vienna rang with bells of victory and mourning all at once. They said the war was over. But for millions, the pain was only beginning. 10 million soldiers were dead, 20 million wounded. The survivors returned home not as heroes, but as ghosts, haunted by the trenches, crippled by what they'd seen. Families waited on platforms that never saw their sons again. The lost generation, a phrase born from grief, now defined a continent. And yet, in the grand halls of Paris, politicians promised to shape peace. They called it justice. But justice born of revenge is not peace. It's only the beginning of another war. The Great War had ended, but the peace it left behind was already breaking. Part 2. The Treaty of Versailles. Peace or punishment? The Treaty of Versailles was meant to rebuild. Instead, it poisoned the world. In 1919, leaders from Britain, France, America, and Italy met to decide the fate of millions. Woodrow Wilson dreamed of unity through his 14 points, but others wanted retribution. Out of victory came vengeance, and from vengeance, despair. Germany was stripped of its territories, its army reduced, its pride destroyed. The war guilt clause branded it the sole cause of the conflict. For ordinary Germans, it was humiliation, a betrayal carved in ink. Meanwhile, the Austro-Hungarian, Ottoman, and Russian empires vanished. New nations emerged: Poland, Czechoslovakia, Yugoslavia, born not of identity, but of politics. Borders were drawn with arrogance, slicing through cultures and families alike. In Berlin's broken streets, anger began to stir. A wounded veteran with fiery eyes listened, learned, and vowed revenge. His name, Adolf Hitler. The Treaty of Versailles didn't bring peace. It built the foundation for the next catastrophe. Part 3. A world in ruins. Europe may have survived the war, but it was left hollowed out, starving, grieving, and lost. Factories were silent, cities in ruins. In Germany, the mark collapsed into worthlessness. A loaf of bread cost millions. The world had fought for peace, but now it fought to survive. From Russia's revolution rose a new ideology: communism. In the East, Lenin's Red Army promised equality through control. To the West, it was a threat, the fear of another kind of war. Women entered the workforce, reshaping society. Old hierarchies crumbled as democracy flickered in unstable nations. But peace without purpose is fragile. Writers like Erich Maria Remarque described the emptiness left behind. We are forlorn like children and experienced like old men. Europe had won the war, but it had lost its innocence. A generation scarred, economies broken, nations drifting toward a darkness still unseen. Part 4. The Rise of Fear and Fury. The 1920s brought light, but it was the light of a match before the flame. Cities rebuilt, music played, and the world tried to forget. But beneath the glitter of the roaring 20s, discontent festered. When hope fades, hatred fills the silence. In Italy, Mussolini rose to power, promising strength. In Germany, economic collapse turned anger into extremism. By 1933, Adolf Hitler seized control, feeding a nation's hunger for pride. In Japan, militarists demanded expansion. In Spain, civil war tore democracy apart. The global depression became the fuel that reignited the fire. Once again, propaganda shouted louder than truth. The flags of fascism, imperialism, and revenge fluttered over a world that had learned nothing. The peace signed in Versailles had crumbled into dust. And once again, the world stood on the brink of annihilation. Part 5. The illusion shatters. By the late 1930s, the illusion of peace was gone. The League of Nations, once a symbol of hope, stood powerless. Japan invaded Manchuria. Italy marched into Ethiopia. And Germany, reborn in hate, prepared for conquest. 20 years after the war to end all wars, the world burned again. In 1939, the first German tanks crossed into Poland. Britain and France declared war. The Second World War had begun. The broken peace of 1918 had come full circle. A generation's sacrifice had been betrayed by greed, pride, and the blindness of victory. And yet, from the ashes of that second catastrophe, humanity would once again rise, to rebuild, to remember, and to hope that history would not repeat itself. But as history has shown us, peace is never permanent. Echoes of a broken world. The First World War changed everything: nations, borders, and humanity itself. It taught us that peace is fragile, and that pride can destroy it faster than war itself. Today, over a century later, the echoes of that broken peace still shape our world. In politics, in conflict, and in the fragile alliances that hold civilization together. We remember the cost of forgetting. And we tell these stories not as relics of the past, but as warnings for the future. This has been History War Chronicles, where the past breathes again. If you found this story powerful, hit like, subscribe, and ring the bell so you never miss a journey through history's untold wars. Because those who remember the past guard the peace of tomorrow.